Today, my friend, we're going to take a look at the Deflicker effect in Davinci Resolve. It's part of the free version of Davinci Resolve, so there's no studio needed. And this was a viewer request in a way. I'll get into that more in a moment. But before I do begin, if you are sensitive to flickering, you may not want to watch this video. Sorry, but it's Deflicker. It's kind of in the title. Anyway, friend of mine went over to England and visited a Royal Enfield motorcycle shop, and it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime trips, and he got footage that looks like this. Yeah, today we're gonna fix that with the Deflicker effect in Davinci Resolve. So welcome back to Creator Reality, my friend. Today we're gonna have a little bit of fun in Resolve. I'm gonna show you how the Deflicker effect works. Deflicker? Anyway, I'm going to show you how it works, and I'm going to show you some caveats to using it and some ways to smooth back the playback, because this thing is a resource hog. So let's dive into Davinci Resolve and take a look at what we're working with. Here I've got some footage and I've got some timelines, and I had a good time tinkering with this guy's footage. Thank you very much, Andy, for the question and being able to use the footage. It's really helpful that I didn't have to make my own. So anyway, we're going to drop image 2828, it's a short one, into our timeline. If you drag from in your media pool just down into the timeline area, it'll create a new timeline. I've got a few of them here. I'm going to Alt select and press D to disable the audio. And yep, this is the one that's really bad with flicker. Let's take a look at it. You saw it in the intro, but this is what it looks like. Yeah, that's pretty bad flickering. So first thing to do is realize that this footage was shot at, I think, 120 frames per second. If we're in our media pool and we scroll over, it'll show you that it's 16 seconds long, 1005 frames. It was recorded at 1080, and this was 60 frames a second. Okay, this one wasn't too bad. You can see some of the others are at 120 and 240, and that plays into the flicker. So what causes the flicker is actually the overhead LED lights. I point like I have overhead LEDs. I've got a softbox right there. But in this workshop, they had overhead fluorescent lights that caused a flicker. Now, if this guy used an iPhone 13 Pro Max something, it was an iPhone 13. He used that to do his recording. Now, the kicker here is that his is a US model. I'm from the US, he's from the US, and if you're in different regions, your camera is probably set up to deflicker at different hertz or different rates. Now, for his, it was probably set up for 60 because our AC is at either 60 or 120, whatever. Physics and math, not my strong suit. I can edit videos though, right? So over in the UK, they have a different refresh rate, and that's going to cause this flickering. So one of the things I noticed was that if I dropped his footage into timelines of different frame rates, 30, 60, 120, I got different results. And I'm going to show you that in a minute after we look at the Deflicker effect. So I've got his footage here. There's no effects on it. We have our inspector open. If you don't see it, click on inspector, and we're going to scroll over here. Whew, that was scary looking at all those numbers. Now, you know, I'm not used to that. But we're going to go to effects. It's right up here in the effects area. Toolbox, filters. We're going to open our magnifying glass. We're going to type in DEF, Deflicker. We drag it onto our clip. Now over here in the inspector, we have Deflicker. You can turn it on and off by clicking on the red dot or gray dot. You can collapse it and expand it. And you have a few settings. You have time-lapse, fluoro light, which I assume is fluorescent light. That's what I used it for. And advanced controls. Time-lapse, no big deal. If it works, it works. It has speed optimization options and restore. Okay, so the output, this is interesting. And I'm going to show this in just a second. But the output, I think, is kind of fascinating to look at. The one that I need for this, because I know it's overhead lighting, is fluoro light. Same setup, but deflickered result in the output, you can select detected flicker, where it detects a little bit of flicker. And if you find a frame where there's a lot, see I'm scrolling through, there's a lot of flicker here. It shows you what the flicker looks like. And then you also have the magnified flicker, which shows you everything and then magnifies it. So it's kind of self-explanatory, but you can see how much of a flicker is going on. And this frame rate and hertz thing, it has to do with how quickly the image is being captured by your camera versus the on-off of overhead lights, because they flicker on and off. And most people can't see it. We see it about 60 hertz, I think. But hey, your mileage may vary. Some people are sensitive to it, some aren't. I've met people who are sensitive to fluorescent lights. Are you one of them? Leave a comment below. Have you learned anything? Hit the like button. Anyway, let's move on. So what we need to do is go back to detected flicker and change it to deflickered result. There we go. So this is just our final image. Now up here in deflicker settings, we saw this earlier, advanced controls. So it allows you to do some temporal stuff where you can select the frames either side. So what Resolve is going to do is it's going to figure out based on the preceding and next frames, or preceding and next frames. I always get that backwards. And it's going to figure out the differences and make the adjustments as needed to deflicker your footage. So the default's 3. I played with this at 5. You get motion estimation. And again, this is like Tinker City, right? You got to play with it to see what works better, but you have faster, better, and none. Motion range, you have small, medium, and large. I honestly didn't find a lot of difference playing with any of these settings for the footage that was sent to me. So if your footage is different, still flickery, you might have better luck than I did. But fluoro light worked for this. Now, I'm going to play this back, and I'm going to show you what the playback speed looks like. And my computer's doing quite a bit, but it's going to be choppy. Watch. Yeah, we're at 14.4 frames per second. So the fix for that, if you want smoother playback, and this applies to basically any time you're adding effects to footage in Resolve, if you don't want to use proxies and you want to use the full timeline resolution, just do what I'm about to show you to smooth out the playback. So I'm going to right click on my clip and I'm going to select Render Cache Color Output. You may not see a line right away, but mine popped up. It starts out as red, and the blue portion of it is the portion that Resolve has rendered onto your hard drive. So it's doing all the math now so that when you play the footage back, it doesn't have to do that math anymore. Look, I've reached off screen without having to look to grab my water. All right, now it's done. We can play this back. Check this out. It's going to play back nice and smooth at 60 FPS. And you can still see some not deflicker, but you can see some flickering going on the footage there. We have a fix for that. There are 2 ways that I found to do this. One is to render out the clip and then add deflicker again, but I don't know how many Resolve effects do this, but deflicker lets you stack it. So let's go do that. So with deflicker still selected, I'm going to drag it onto my clip. And then my line should turn red again. There it is. And if you notice in the inspector, we have 2 deflickers. And I'm going to change the second one to fluoro light. And then I'm going to go have a cup of coffee and sit around, read a book. War and Peace sounds like really good right now. I do know when I was rendering this out earlier that it rendered at 5 FPS. Because I rendered it out to send it to Andy so he could use it in a video he's producing. While that's rendering, I mean, this was a one-in-a-lifetime trip, right? He's not going to be able to redo this. And look at these messages he sent me. He was thinking of scrapping the whole video because the flicker was so bad. And I said, I don't know that a lot of people are going to notice, but let me help if I can. And obviously I could, and now I'm going to try to help you. Are you learning anything? Yeah. Have you subscribed yet? You should do that. Hit the little subscribe button downstairs. Below the video, John. Jeez. All right, now it's done rendering. Let's take a look at the Stacked Deflicker. Doesn't that look a whole lot better? There's still ever so slightly a flicker effect to it, but there are ways to get rid of that. The other thing you can do is put it into a different timeline at a different resolution. So I said earlier I was going to show you what I did for Andy and some of the tinkering I did. So let's go take a look at 2 other timelines and see what's going on there. So going into our 30 FPS timeline, the first clip has deflicker turned off. The second one has it just once. And this is what it looks like with no deflicker. Just to remind you, really flickery, right? You can understand why he might want to scrap this footage. Now, if we play it with 1 deflicker on it, it looks pretty good. That's pretty good. It's not as good as our double stacked one, but it's not bad. Then we go over to 60 FPS, and I've got one deflicker turned on here, and this is at 60 FPS, and it looks much better than it does at 30. If we go back to 30, and we have our one deflicker right here, and we hit play, I think it looks a little bit better at 60 FPS. So you can play around with the timeline settings and the project settings and then your render settings to make sure that you're getting the best possible result. Not too shabby, right? Pretty quick, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of background, and I was happy to help out a friend. So if you have some footage that is troublesome that you're dealing with in Resolve, feel free to reach out. Drop me a comment, send me an email. The email address is somewhere here on the channel page, and I'm happy to take a look at it. This is fun stuff. So anyway, I hope you learned something from today's video. I hope you got something out of it. You see how easy it is to remove flicker. For information, he was using, Andy is he, let's not play the pronoun game. Andy was using Final Cut Pro, which does not have a built-in deflicker. So this is another tick in the Pro column for Davinci Resolve. It's free. It's in the free version. How cool is that? And you can double stack it to even greater effect, which I happen to love. So anyway, I hope you're having a great day. Go check out this video next. It's one of mine. I'm sure you'll learn something from it. And I will see you all in the next video. John out.